our collective noun for storyteller, is a rookery of storytellers, because a collective noun for rooks is a storytelling. Let's talk about storytelling. Who does it? Why do we do it? What the hell is it? And what does it do? Storytelling is one of the oldest art forms that we have, arguably the oldest. There are many different ways of telling a story, and storytelling is one of them. A lot of people conflate storytelling and telling a story with each other. You can tell a story in many different ways. An actor can tell a story, an author can tell a story, a playwright can tell a story, a politician can tell a story, a Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master can tell a story. But storytelling is an art unto itself. At Unlicensed Oral Arts, we are traditional storytellers. What does that mean? Well, mainly, it means that we don't use scripts, we learn our stories. Our stories are different every time they're told. The stories change depending on who we're telling them to. And we have an active, ongoing, reciprocal engagement with whoever is listening to the story. There are many different words for a storyteller depending on where you are on the globe. Shanachie, griot, Cathakudu, Kobzar, and some places don't even have a word for storyteller. In traditional oral storytelling, the storyteller can tell the same story 1,000 times, and every time they tell it, it is different. A different storyteller can tell that story 1,000 times, and it will be different every time again. Each time a story is told, it changes depending on who it's being told to, who's listening, and what the storyteller wants to show at the time. What makes a storyteller different from, say, an author or an actor is that they are not pretending to be someone else. They are being their essential selves. What I mean by this is that the story is a prism, and the storyteller is a light shining through the prism. When the light exits the prism, you see the whole rainbow of the storyteller's people, their culture, what the storyteller is, who they are. One important thing about storytellers is they also don't have to be real people. You look at Scheherazade, Uncle Remus, Peg Sayers, all of them storytellers. Many of them might not actually be real people, but that doesn't matter. The storyteller is the light, the story is the prism, and you see the rainbow of them even if the storyteller is not there. A little bit of a postmodernism there. But people have told stories ever since there has been language to put words to them. People have been storytellers ever since people have put meanings to the sounds that they make. Ever since language has existed. There's a Hawaiian proverb, roughly translated as "you are the second song." The meaning behind it is that your stories have power. The words that you say have power, and they can change things. All art has power, but the particular power of storytelling is that it changes the world in real time. It changes the world as the storyteller interacts with the audience. The storyteller is also a part of living history. In the West African griot tradition, they are the story keepers, the historians, and they are part of the community. In the Irish Shanachie tradition, we keep our oral history alive through the stories. Stories can evoke memory, feelings, and thoughts in a way that the written language can't. There are even stories about storytellers having power, the power to change the world and even to topple kings. How does this work in the digital age? Well, luckily enough, we have this wonderful invention called live streams. How storytelling works with live streams is that we still have the audience interaction. They can comment, they can like, they can share in real time with the storyteller. This has been particularly good as we can no longer tell stories face to face, and if we try to do that, we have to be very, very far apart. Because storytelling is one of the most intimate and vulnerable arts there are, the storyteller has to be incredibly vulnerable to show themselves through the story. Unlicensed Oral Arts wants to bring that vulnerability onto the internet. We've been trying to figure out how to do that, and that's part of what we're all about. Myself, Emily, Stephen, and Nisha, we come together through the power of the internet and tell stories to people who who want to listen in. The stories change according to who is listening in. And we love to hear feedback, we love to interact with everyone. And to finish off, I'm going to tell a story about the power of storytelling. It's an old Irish story, and it's set a very long time ago, but not very far away, at least from where we are. There were once two kinds of people in Ireland. The Tuatha Danann, gods and heroes alike, and the Fomorians, who were giant raiders and pirates, who were based off the coast of Ireland. The Fomorians and the Tuatha Danann were in constant conflict with one another. The Tuatha Danann being the gods such as the Morrigan, the war goddess, the Dagda, the great father figure, Ogma, the god of Ogham, of the written word, Lu, the god of the sun. The Fomorians had Balor of the evil eye, who could kill any enemy with a look. It came to pass that the king of the Tuatha Danann, Nuada, lost his arm. Even though they replaced it with a silver arm, Nuada was no longer physically perfect, and therefore could no longer rule over the Tuatha Danann. They searched for someone who embodied beauty and physical perfection, and they found someone like that. Bress. Bress the Beautiful, he was known as. Bress also happened to be half Fomorian and half Tuatha Danann. They made him king, thinking that his reign would bring peace between the Fomorians and Tuatha Danann. They could not have been more wrong. Bress allowed the Fomorians to continue to raid and to pillage along Ireland. He also enslaved many of the Tuatha Danann. And worst of all, he introduced taxes. He would tax a third of everything the Tuatha Danann had. A third of the harvest, a third of the wealth, and 1 in every 3 children would have to be given up to Bress. There was a Shanachie named Carbra. Being a Shanachie, he was used to being invited with welcoming arms into a hall to be given the finest of food and drink and hospitality. So we found it very strange that when he arrived at Bress's hall, the only thing that met him was a closed gate. He knocked on the gate, and a guard answered. "There seems to be some sort of a mistake," said Carbra. "I am here to entertain Bress and his household, but he has not welcomed me into his hall." "Oh, Bress has seen you coming," said the guard, "and he doesn't want to welcome you into his hall, but he'll give you lodgings for the night." Now Carbra was displeased by this, but, well, he needed somewhere to sleep, and he needed to eat. So he went in. He was about to go into the great hall when the guard pulled him aside, led him past the stables, past the pig pen, to a small lean-to hut. "This is where you will be lodging tonight," said the guard. "Is this some sort of joke?" replied Carbra. "No," said the guard. "You'll be lodging here." And Carbra was left in that little hut, without a stick of furniture and only a bowl of water and a crust of bread to eat. Even though Carbra was tired from his journey, he didn't sleep that night. He stayed awake the whole night, composing a new story. It was a satire. It told the story of Bress, of his mean character, of his greed, and how he was completely unfit to rule the land. The next day, when Carbra set forth, he began to tell his story in every small town and every great hall he found. Carbra's story travelled, even after Carbra had stopped telling it. It travelled through the mouths of other storytellers, to the furthest reaches of the country. The power of this story emboldened the Tuatha Danann, and eventually led to the overthrow of Bress and the crowning of a new king. But that story is one for another storyteller and for another day.